Hello, dear ones. I'm Savi Ma from IllumiNature Circle and lovingawareness.org, and I'm here with another IllumiNature Energy Reset, where I share my intuitive insights and source-inspired self-care guidance. This week, as I sat down to tune in for our time together today, there was a lot of vulnerability rising up. My own vulnerability, noticing my own vulnerability rising to the surface, and noticing that I was questioning myself, questioning, maybe even doubting that vulnerable place inside me that says, am I enough? What are these messages that I'm sharing? Does anyone really care to listen? Is anyone listening? And who am I to deliver these messages? And I'm sharing this vulnerability with you because I feel like it's an important aspect of some energy that's really up right now. There's a lot, I think it's because of the uncertainty that's happening in pretty much everything right now. We feel that energy, no matter how small or how large our world experience or our worldview is, we feel the energy of uncertainty. And that energy can make us feel vulnerable. It can make us question ourselves. It can even make us doubt ourselves sometimes and really have us sort of spinning in a momentum of disservice to our alignment, to our truth, to the heart of who and what we really are. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't think those things. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't feel that. What it does mean is bring our awareness awake to it so that we notice when we're doing that, that we can call ourselves forward within that and say, wait, why am I questioning this? I know who I am. Why am I doubting this? Is there somewhere here that is out of integrity? Am I out of integrity? Am I out of my authenticity? Am I listening to my inner authority? These are questions that we can ask ourselves and be willing to really listen and hear what the answer is. So vulnerability can be a wonderful teacher. It can be a guide, right? Feeling vulnerable means that there's something for us to more deeply inquire about. It means that we can check in and ask ourselves questions and ask ourselves also not only what are we feeling, but what is it that we need? I think when we find ourselves in a space of vulnerability, sometimes it can be hard for us to feel safe enough to give ourselves the safety and security that we need in a space, in a moment of time, to actually feel what we're feeling and to ask ourselves, what is it that I need right now? What is this vulnerability about? So for me, when I started to check into the vulnerable moments that I've been having over the past week, I've realized that most of the vulnerability is stemming from my inner small self, my personhood self, being concerned about how I am being perceived and received. This is a core thing, and it takes a lot of vulnerability for me to even share this with you right now. This is a core thing for me, and I think that this is a core thing for a lot of us in this human family, where we question, are we enough? Are we doing it right? Is what we are sharing, expressing, creating on purpose? Is it authentic? Is it in integrity? And is it serving? One of my greatest prayers in this life is to be able to serve and generate through my IllumiNature, through the love light nature of who I am. And what I need to remember, what Source reminds me all the time, and what I invite all of you to remember as you're listening to this, is that your IllumiNature is not dependent on anything or anyone outside of you. You do not need validation, approval, permission, acceptance, really from anyone or anything outside of you. You hold yourself accountable. You shore up with your purpose, with your passion, with your creative force, with your alignment. And you express from that place. And from that place, there can be nothing wrong. No matter how it lands, no matter how it is shared, no matter how it is received, you're following your most authentic voice. You're following your most authentic truth, and you're allowing your most authentic expression. And these things that I'm sharing with you right now are the very things that I receive from my high self inside, from my source nature, from source as those messages come and download through me, from the highest self of who and what I really am, just like you are, that is ever connected to source nature. Those reminders are right there within me. And I receive those reminders and take them to heart and remember why I'm here. I'm not here to be validated in any way externally. And this brings me to, vulnerability, yes, the first thing that sort of rose up this week. And this next thing that rose up this week is how we have a tendency toward being externally focused. So we put our energy and our attention outward. We're always looking outside of ourselves for information, for validation, for confirmation, for approval, for acceptance, for belonging. And while we as a humanity do have a strong need for that sense of belonging, we are an interdependent and interrelated species that is important to our nature. And yet we are not completely dependent on that. We are not dependent on another to validate our worthiness, to validate our value. And in times where things are extra sensitive, this is another thing that really rises up. And when I say these things rise up whether I am interacting and interfacing with people or not. I feel and sense these energies, and they come through in a way of energy messages that I can share with everyone listening, with myself, quite honestly, to help me understand and integrate and embody and evolve and transform. So sensitivities is another thing. When sensitivities are high, and I do feel that we've been in a period of very high sensitivity. Some of you may be aware there have been a lot of solar storms lately. Eruptions and ejections from the sun's solar field that NASA reports. This is a scientific thing. And these eruptions this is an energetic force. The very light that gives life to this planet is sending off these huge flares. And these flares do affect the electromagnetic field on the Earth. And therefore, they affect us. We are living beings within the electromagnetic field of this Earth. In fact, we ourselves are electromagnetic beings. Everything is energy. So that's just a little side note to say, if you've noticed extra sensitivity, heightened sensitivities in pretty much every category on all levels, you might even be noticing physical sensations of sensitivity, like maybe you're having itchiness or rashes that are developing out of nowhere that you have no idea what they're coming from. You may have allergies spiking that you haven't had in a long, long time, or allergies that you do have may seem to be even worse than they have been before. You may be noticing tightness or tension, resistance in different parts of your body. You may notice twitching. That's something that I've had a lot lately. All of a sudden, little pulse signals are twitching in different random parts of my body. And that can be kind of unnerving in a way, because we wonder, well, what's happening? Why is suddenly my knee is like pulsing from inside the knee joint? A finger is suddenly moving and twitching, and it's random. It's not consistent. It's not a consistent part of the body. These things move around, and they feel like electrical signals that are pulsing so strongly as the energy is moving through different parts of our body. So that's a way that we can notice it physically. We might also notice that we are maybe sleeping a little bit less restfully. We are maybe having more dreams than we normally do. There's so many different ways that we can notice this. Digestion is another one. We might be feeling sluggish in our digestion. On the flip side of that, we might be feeling more hungry than usual. We might be having more cravings than usual. These are some of the ways that I see these sensitivities being heightened. And yes, due to the solar flares, but I believe honestly that there is just so much shift happening on the planet right now that these sensitivities are just heightened. And I feel that the sun is actually playing its role. It's not the cause, but it's playing its role in these heightened sensitivities, these waves that ultimately I believe speak to what we talked about a couple of weeks ago with this umbrella theme of the Great Awakening. I think sensitivities are going to become more pronounced, not less. I'm sorry, that feels like kind of being the bearer of not so great news. I think it's just something for us to be aware of so that we can treat ourselves gently, take good care of ourselves, and help ourselves to navigate in a way that we give ourselves the rest that we need when we need it, that we really listen to our bodies, that we honor what it is that we're experiencing and feeling, and that we recognize that some of these sensitivities are very much a part of us growing, expanding, and evolving as a humanity here on this earth in these precious times of transformation. Sensitivities now, they aren't only necessarily noticed on the physical level. We're noticing sensitivities emotionally, mentally, pretty much every category that you can think of. Communication sensitivities. We might be feeling a little bit more easily triggered, emotionally triggered. Feeling a little bit like we're on an emotional roller coaster sometimes. Feeling waves of very exaggerated emotional state and then dropping into yet another. That's why I say roller coaster. It's like extreme highs and extreme lows. And those extreme highs and extreme lows can be very close together. There's not a big expanse between the ups and the downs. It's almost like sometimes, not all the time. Thank goodness. That would be a lot to navigate. Mentally, we're noticing sensitivities, a lot of overwhelm, things that are coming into the field that just feel overstimulating and overwhelming and too much. And all of this can really put a tax on our nervous systems. We can really feel as though our nervous systems are working in overdrive. And we really need to listen to our bodies. I know I've probably said that multiple times in the minutes that we've already been talking. I can't emphasize it enough. We need to listen to our bodies. We have programmed ourselves and conditioned ourselves to be so busy, especially here in the Western United States area of this planet. We have subscribed so fully to busyness. We work like crazy, and we tend to feel like we're just not doing enough. So we'll add another thing. We've got our kids engaged in tons of different activities, and everybody's always running here, there. Sometimes we wonder, how are we going to get everyone where they need to be at the times that they need to be there, because everyone is so fully scheduled. We have subscribed to this notion of busyness, and this notion of busyness is dangerous territory, very dangerous territory, because we're asking more and more and more of our bodies. And as we're asking more and more of our bodies, and we're doing our best to keep up, and then it's like there's never quite enough. I find this, I work with so many people individually, and I find that they're wanting things to be simplified. They're wanting things to not necessarily feel slow. That can be hard for people that are used to keeping a pace, but they like the idea of simplicity. And yet there's always something that is being added into the mix of what they are wanting to do in their lives. And sometimes I think that we've created an epidemic of busyness. We've created such a an expectation of busyness, that if we even want to calm that down, to simplify things, to be able to have the space to listen to our bodies, to re-regulate our nervous systems that have become so much in overdrive, how can we even do that if we created a patterning, a routine of keeping up, adding on, busyness, busyness, busyness? It's a perpetual cycle that is harming our culture and our society, quite honestly. And this is one of the greatest concerns that I have as I look out at the landscape of humanity going through these times of transformation. Times of transformation don't just automatically happen. And usually the biggest transformations come from a very expanded experience that sometimes means, so transformation means rebirth, essentially. A rebirth doesn't happen without a death cycle before it. So I really want you to hear that. Transformation, yes, can it be a gradual, evolving transformation? Yes, of course. But in order for that to happen, there has to be something that is falling away. There has to be something that is breaking down and releasing to allow space for the next rebirth of expansion to happen. And so if we really think about what that means energetically, and we do know that we are in this great awakening time, this time of transformation, then we would do well to ask ourselves, how could I be caring for myself more? How could I be taking deep, deep care of myself? How could I be listening to my body's needs, to my emotional needs, to my mental needs, my mental health, my mental well-being? And what could I be shifting to honor that in a bigger way? How could I be allowing myself enough rest, enough space for me to feel, sense, hear, and see what is meant to be being revealed to me during this time, so that I can grow and expand and transform and keep up with my IllumiNature, keep up with the light of my being fully present. So that was a lot that just downloaded right there. I never know exactly how these things are going to come through when I sit down. I have a sense of some of the points, and this just laid itself all out. We started with vulnerability, and somehow that wove into sensitivity and external focus. And all of these things, when I ask Source, all of these things that I'm experiencing, Source, feeling vulnerable, externally focused, questioning my validity, questioning my authenticity, questioning what it is that I'm sharing, questioning how I move in the world, questioning myself, and not feeling super confident, feeling vulnerable, feeling a little bit fragile, feeling sensitive, so sensitive, feeling the energy of everything that surrounds me and every being that I interface with. And I'm expressing here some of my own feelings and thoughts, and I'm knowing as I do this that there will be those of you that can relate with this. And you can fill in the blank and add your things as we ask Source. Is there something that will help us to navigate this time? Help to navigate this time of our transformation where we want to be so plugged in to our IllumiNature, to the pure presence, essence of who and what we really are, to our inner authority, to know with full clarity who and what we really are. Is there something else, Source, that you would share with us? And when I asked this question today, it was so amazing. I I was feeling these things. I was feeling all of these things. And this is never linear. It happens in spirals and crisscrosses. And I actually gave myself a little pause. I walked away to, I don't know, go brush my teeth this morning or something. And while I was in that space, I had this impression around self-love. Now I'll share with you that self-love, I've been working with people doing private sessions for many, many years. And I can promise you that every person that I've worked with, the number one thing that is the single most challenging aspect of the work that we do is always around the theme of self-love. And I don't know that there's any one of us on the planet that has a super easy time with that. That definitely has been a growth space for me and continues to be. I had an interesting source impression that delivered an epiphany that I realized it. You know how it is when you kind of know something, but then all of a sudden something drops in and they call it an aha moment where you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I get it. Oh my gosh, why did I not think of this in this way before? What I saw was, in this impression, was the difference between how we see self-love and how Source sees self-love, and the opportunity therein for a reframe. What I saw was when we invite ourselves towards self-love, it feels like another thing for us to do, like give yourself self-love. That's another thing I have to do. And it feels also, if we're in sort of a compromised state, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, it may not feel super accessible to us. It may not feel like, well, I'm not worthy of that. I just don't even feel like I can give myself self-love. I'm not deserving of that. Who do I think I am to be all about the self-love? And so that can be a stopper almost immediately. And I've seen this time and time again with the people that I work with. You can give a person 50 people to shower love upon, and they will take up that invitation. They will give that love to those 50 people. And that will be it's on a spectrum of easy, but they're willing. There's a willingness. And then the invitation comes, turn that love upon yourself. Give yourself self-love. And hesitation and resistance rises up because we don't feel worthy. We don't feel deserving. So what I saw in this impression this morning was Source says you've got the equation backwards. You've got the equation mixed. You're seeing self as your personhood self to be the giver of self-love to who? To the receiver. Who's the receiver? You, me, we. But it's all in a small frame. And Source said if you flip the equation so that that part of you that doesn't feel worthy, that part of you that doesn't feel deserving, the smaller self, the personhood self, the earth being self, who doesn't know how to access self-love, isn't sure how to tap into it. Source said, let that part of yourself be the receiver. And the giver is your inner self. The giver is that self part of you that is infinite, that is evermore, that is not born and can't die, can't be given to you, can't be taken away, never broken, never lost. That self-love is the generating force that we are born of. And I don't know how that's landing for you, but when I got that this morning, it was like something different clicked. And always it's not like it's new, but it is a new way of feeling the information. It's a new way of feeling the energy. And for me, it made a huge difference. Because what I recognized then was that I didn't have to feel like I had to create something in myself that made me feel good enough about myself that I could give myself self-love. Nope. It takes all of the pressure off of that, and all I have to do is be the allowing receiver. And even that sometimes can be challenging. If we're in such a state, it can be very challenging sometimes to even allow ourselves to receive that signal, that pulse of self-love that is always vibrating within us. But the thing is, it is vibrating whether we allow it and receive it consciously or not. It is there. So I love how these things are coming through in these weeks that we're sharing together. I love how things are connected. These are not separate pieces. Everything we talk about each week is so interwoven and connected. And I feel like what dropped in right here around self-love today is like this amazing foundational piece. We've talked about pure presence. We've talked about inner authority, and how we can amplify and activate our sense of inner authority. And if you haven't listened to those videos, please go back and listen to the videos from the previous weeks. It's like they layer together so powerfully and so beautifully. And today I think, well, why didn't we talk about self-love first? But maybe we had to tap into all those other aspects in a way that would let this idea that we literally are self-love, that it is the origin energy that we are born of. It is literally what lives and breathes within us as us, here in this physical body and beyond this physical time space, to infinity and beyond. And I've said that about pure presence within us. Yes, it starts to sound like our inner authority and pure presence and self-love, are they the same thing? When we talk about the essence of energy, Source says yes. But we will interact and relate with these essences, this essence, in subtly different ways. The way that they're activated within us, the way that we utilize the energy, the way we express the energy, the way the energy is expressed through us. So as I had that impression this morning, I knew there was going to be more with that. I could feel it. So I grabbed my journal and my pen and I wrote. I just, the transmission comes in. I just auto write. I just give my hand to Source. I give the pen and the paper to Source, and the message comes through. So I have that message written, and I will be sharing that full message that is so related to what I'm conveying with you right now. And we will post that on the website. I'll drop a link below so that you can access that post and really take in the words directly guided from Source. It's powerful. For me, it was an enormous reframe. It really makes a difference. And for me, it's an embodied difference. I can feel the difference in my body. I don't have to think about, am I giving myself love? Am I being self-loving? It's like the self-love that's within will inform our ability to care for ourselves lovingly, to make loving choices for ourselves, to listen to ourselves, to nurture ourselves, to embrace ourselves when we're feeling vulnerable, to embrace ourselves when we're feeling sensitive and overwhelmed, to embrace ourselves and to help us see the clarity when we are externally focused for validation and approval. That self-love space within us, it's there perpetually, infinitely, evermore, pulsing vitality, pulsing love, pulsing truth. And we don't have to ask for it. It is given. It is ours. It's within each and every one of us. I just really hope that as you hear this message, that there's something that sparks that alive within you, that distinction of knowing. And as that happens, notice how that can shift the way you feel about your own self-value and your own self-worth. Notice what that changes. Notice how your sovereignty rises up from within. Your personal autonomy feels totally online. And then it becomes about what it's always meant to be about. That we're just living the light of our truth alive. And we can't not share that, because that would just feel, how could we not? How can we keep it contained? So for me, that puts me in a place of, I need to share. I don't need to share because you need me to share. I love that you want to listen to these messages, and I so appreciate your listening to these messages. But I don't have to share the messages because I need you to need them. I can share the messages because it's what's on my heart, and if I don't share it, I think I might burst. This way I can burst in a really beautiful way. And I can feel like I'm living my life in service to my truth and to my light and to the love that I have to share. I want that for all of you. Whatever it is, however you navigate in your life, whatever passions and inspirations and creativities move through you, I want you to know that it's because of your IllumiNature that that's happening. Living by the vitality of your love, your truth, your light, and allowing that to be the validation that you need. If any is needed, it comes from within you. Be you, be uniquely you. Know the generating force of self-love that is continuously pulsing and vibrating from within you, and allow yourself to receive it. You are worthy. You are deserving. You are beautiful. You are love. You're born of love, and you are love. We all are. There is not a single being on this planet, this was part of the message that came through, there is not a single one of us on this planet that is immune to this or excluded from this. Not a single being, no matter what, no matter who. And this is not just us two-legged humans. This is the four-leggeds and the winged ones, the trees, the rocks, the grasses. Every living, vital being is born of this love and this light, and it vibrates true and strong, infinitely evermore from within all of us. All we need to do is place ourselves in a space of receiving and allowing. It's such a different way to come to this. It doesn't make it feel like we're falling short. I wasn't good enough to give myself self-love this week. It's not about that anymore. It's never going to be about that again. We just need to remind ourselves where that generating force lives. It lives within us. We don't have to put it there. It is there. It is what is. Thank you all so much for sitting here, for being with me as these messages, these truths, this love comes through and is revealed to each of us right here, right now, in these precious moments, in this beautiful, great awakening time of transformation. I love that you're here on this path with me. I promise I'm going to keep going forward. I'm going to keep allowing. I'm going to keep receiving. And I'm going to keep knowing that my generating force is alive and well. And that gives me hope. It gives me trust. It gives me passion to keep showing up and to keep serving in this world. Not because I need anyone to receive it in any certain way, but because I need it. Because this is who I am. This is what I do. This is how I serve. I want all of you to find that for yourselves as well. Let's walk joyously on this path, fiercely, boldly. The validation comes from within. Thank you all so much for listening. This is such a vibe. It's really hard, honestly, to come to a closing, but I know that we've been talking far long at this point. Time disappears when these messages come through, when this passion and these truths are talking. I so appreciate your time. I appreciate your hearts. I see the love that resides within you. I feel that love that resides within you. I embrace that. I embrace us all. What a mighty love field. If you enjoy these messages and you would like to steep more deeply, IllumiNature Circle is for you. Every single thing that I am creating within IllumiNature Circle, the resources, truthfully, they are all there to support us in understanding ourselves, recognizing our true nature, and coming alive through self-love and self-care. It's all there for you. Come and join us at IllumiNature Circle inside of lovingawareness.org. Keep an eye on the links down below. You can check out the message that I mentioned that I channeled from Source this morning about reframing self-love. And let's see, you might look for some other links that are below there too, other support tips and tools that'll help you really embrace this message today. Please take care, listen to your bodies, honor your feelings, honor your needs. Take good care, and I'll see you next week.